Welcome back to Gruber Motor Company and the Gruber Morning Show, where we discuss all things EV and the latest news and trends, and we entertain questions from everyone that is interested in asking them. We actually added a couple of streaming platforms this morning. I'd like to introduce our normal streams, which is YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And we also today have Facebook and YouTube Shorts. So welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. Again, if you're asking questions, tell us your location. It's always fascinating to find out from the various parts of the world that people are watching our podcast and interested and curious about all things electric vehicle. One of the first things I wanted to cover today, this was an interesting one, talking about the Cybertruck. Everybody is anxious to get their Cybertruck. Many of you may have reservations. It turns out Elon stated that the Cybertruck would be waterproof enough to cross rivers, lakes, and even seas. Now, there's an interesting notion. Forget your expensive plane tickets to Europe. Just get in your Cybertruck. It may take you a while, but it'd be interesting if you could cross the oceans in your Cybertruck. It's a well-known fact that people who love outdoor activities buy pickup trucks because they can drive on dirt roads, rocks, grass, and even streams. But when it comes to water and an electric car, the average person will immediately say that these two are incompatible. But those familiar with Teslas know that the company's vehicles repeatedly prove their safety when owners were forced to cross completely flooded roads. I remember one shot in China. There was a flooded underpass, and I swear this Model S must have been underwater up to the side windows, and it made it through. Unlike an internal combustion engine car where you have intake ports and you're bringing air from the outside to promote combustion, EVs don't have any of that need. And so if the battery stays watertight and the cabin is waterproof, then you could theoretically float across something or drive through water. We have another local customer that actually attempted to prove that a Tesla Model S could be turned into a submarine. And we were not only involved in the event on site where he attempted this, but we did preparations for his Model S. It was a Model S Plaid, actually, and waterproofed it to the extent that we could. As it turns out, though, when he finally went into this big trough that was filled with water, the car began to float, despite the fact that he had a few thousand pounds of weights in it. So it looked like the air inside the vehicle overcame the ballast. But anyway, getting back to the Cybertruck, Elon says that it would be able to cross streams and it would have the ability to float for a while and serve as a boat for a while. He says that the Cybertruck should be able to cross rivers, lakes, and even seas. Now, we don't know if he was joking about the overseas thing, but I would tend to think that that would be the case, but it's a novel thought. We have a TikTok greeting from Northern Ireland, an Instagram greeting, good morning, again from Ireland. YouTube, 8637 Paul. Hi, I'm Paul in the UK, love these broadcasts. Second week with a Model Y, loving it. Do you think that there should be more thought put into the manufacturing stage about recycling the batteries? Well, there actually is a lot of thought put into recycling. There are a number of companies emerging. One of the largest is Redwood Materials, owned by none other than J.B. Strobel, who was the CTO of Tesla for 14 years. So very knowledgeable, and they are recycling lithium-ion battery packs, or actually any type of battery pack for that matter. And the good part about that is we're not putting them into landfills. We're actually recycling, and many of these materials will be sold back to the EV manufacturers, creating a true closed-loop recycling effort. So we've got another interesting thing here. For those of you that were watching the AI Day with Tesla, And we've got an image to pop up there, the robot that is watering a plant. Now, is that a mind-blowing shot or what? The question that was asked was, just imagine what these humanoid robots will be capable of within a decade. Currently, if you notice in the picture, they have a tether connected to the robot, and that's, as Elon said, we don't want the thing falling flat on its face because of a misstep. I can only imagine there's an enormous amount of money tied up in that humanoid robot, and the tether definitely protects it from damage. But it was quite a event, somewhat more technical than the average person would prefer, but they had to start somewhere. Now, Tesla is not the first company making or focused on creating humanoid robots. There's a company, Boston Dynamics, for example, that has been involved in making robots since 1992. We've got UBTech, Hanson Robotics, Samsung Electronics, Shadow Robot Company, Intuitive Robots, Mako Robots, Kindred Systems. It looks like this is going to be the future, and it may be happening faster than we realize. The main thing about these robots is that they will be able to start taking over mundane functions that we don't want to do. Also, certain dangerous operations, going into Chernobyl, for example, and collecting data and trying to stabilize. A mechanical robot doesn't have the risks that we as bioorganisms do in those kind of applications. For those of you that watched the event, it was kind of sobering. The thing that I found interesting is Tesla is actually using its full self-driving technology, which probably separates them from the rest of these other 10 companies that I mentioned that have been involved in building humanoid robots. Tesla has an enormous amount of investment in their full self-driving capability. And if you really give it some thought, the mechanical robots are going to need software and programming just like what's in the car to maneuver around on our planet. So it could be that Tesla may be a step ahead. We've got a YouTube question from MyMelt. EV momentum is growing, but charging infrastructure and battery replacement costs and recycling lag are big problems. Charging infrastructure, in my opinion, actually is progressing at a healthy pace. I know it's frustrating when you go to a charging station in California, for example, and they have 20 or 30 or even 40 stations, and they're all occupied, and you go into a queue, into a waiting line. But those tend to be the anomalies. Here in Arizona, for example, I don't think I've ever pulled up to one where it was completely full and I ended up having to wait. You know what, I just remembered. There was one time we were coming back from San Diego. We were tired. We went to the Biltmore supercharger, and it was full up. And we had 2 kids, actually 3 granddaughters in the back seat who were pretty road weary. So it was not a pleasant experience waiting for that 15 minutes or so. The other thing that we noticed, and I hope that they're going to address this concern, the queue wasn't well managed. In fact, I got to a point where I started driving around the supercharger location waiting for something to open up to clearly show people that I was there and that what my place in line was. And believe it or not, some guy snuck in ahead of me into an empty spot. And when I went to talk to him about that, it occurred to me that he wasn't going to budge, and it would have ended in a fist fight, so we acquiesced and backed away. But in general, there may be a case where you're going to have to wait to charge, but for in most instances, it seems to be pretty well managed. The recycling issues, I'm unaware of problems related to that. We'd certainly love to hear from our viewers if you're aware of any kind of issues related to recycling at this point. Again, all of you feel free to ask questions. Tell us where you're from, It's interesting to the rest of the viewers what kind of responses we're getting and where they're coming from. We have a TikTok question, PHG73305. How much do batteries cost when you replace them? Well, it depends on the vehicle, of course, but the one that we're most familiar with is the Tesla Model S. And when you're under warranty, there's an 8-year drivetrain warranty, everything, of course, is free. You go to a service center, they'll change your entire battery and drivetrain for free. After 8 years or 100,000 miles or something like that, 120 maybe, you're suddenly out of warranty. Now, here's where the problem occurs. You've got a 2012, 2013, maybe 2014 Model S that's out of warranty, and your main battery is deemed to be defective. Now you have a $22,000 problem for a vehicle that may be worth $30,000, $35,000. The good news is that as battery technology continues to evolve, and it's evolving rapidly, these prices are coming down. I understand that even Tesla has begun to reduce prices on batteries. So it won't be this way forever. Again, unlike internal combustion engine cars, you have a lot of expensive stuff in the car, but it's spread across a number of items. So you don't have any one item that begins to approach the value of the car. That isn't the case with EVs. You have so few parts in an electric vehicle, you end up with a couple of items that tend to be pretty expensive, and one of them, the biggest one, of course, is the battery. YouTube, question from Gizmos CSS. I have on very good authority that Tesla is transitioning their energy business in certain models in Europe and China to lithium iron phosphate. Do you, hang on a second, I got to lighten away here. Do you think Tesla will produce the 4680 in this chemistry? You know, I don't know that. But again, battery technology, as it continues to improve, will definitely change chemistries as we go and production processes. The end goal, of course, is not only reducing cost, but also reducing weight and concentrating more energy into a smaller space so that instead of driving 300 miles, you can drive over 1,000,000 miles without having to recharge. I have a YouTube question. Richard Garlick. I own a 2017 Mercedes B250e. No issues, but do you count this vehicle as a Tesla? A vehicle you work on, hoping to have a replacement battery someday that will double my range. We don't really consider any non-Tesla vehicles as Teslas, although some of the early vehicles did use Tesla components. And again, what we see in our shop is primarily Tesla Roadsters and the out-of-warranty Teslas. So we expect to see a lot more Model 3s as time goes by, and of course, Ys. So let's move on here into some other topics. Turns out that we have a customer that was using their Tesla Powerwall in Florida during Hurricane Ian. This customer back in 2017 had a solar system without battery backup when Hurricane Irma struck. And they found that they lost all their food as a result. When the storm passed, he said, I started shopping for a different solar system and a different house, for that matter. And he ended up getting the Tesla Powerwall, and he was glad to report that with the Powerwall combination, through Hurricane Ian, they had plenty of power to spare. Now, he did choose to leave the HVAC system and the car charging portion off of the Tesla Powerwall to conserve energy. But he said everything else worked just fine, and they rode out Hurricane Ian, and the Powerwall did the job. Looks like we have an Instagram question from Ropatimas. I believe that first humanoid robot mission will be to replace human workers at the Tesla factory. Well, it's always a concern. Will these robots take our jobs? I think that in our lifetime, the type of work that robots will be doing will be the type of jobs that we don't want to do. Now, as we start moving into sentient AI, and that's around the corner as well, there will come a day when robots and machines, at least humanoid robots, will be able to do a better job than we are. Fundamentally, computers already do that. Calculators, for example. So it is coming, but I wouldn't be too concerned at this point because initially I think these humanoid robots are just simply going to take the jobs that we don't want. Have an Instagram question from Took It Today. Will they eventually limit the speed? 0 to 60 is extremely fast. Well, my first comment to that is I hope not. I'm really enjoying those 0 to 60 times that we're able to get with these electric vehicles. They just kind of pin you back in the seat, and you get to experience top fuel dragsters without the expense and having to go to the drag strip. I think that the question probably has a larger component, which is that it may be unsafe to give that much power to current drivers. And that part I can agree with. Those of you that drive have probably noticed that in the last few decades, the quality of driving on the road is beginning to decline. It's not uncommon to see people completely distracted, not only putting up makeup in the rearview mirror while they're driving, but cell phones have probably created more accidents than any piece of technology that we have. My vote on that is, having been a race car driver, when you get behind the wheel, you need to take what you're about to do very seriously, and complete focus is the only solution to staying alive, especially at the speeds on the racetrack. So I think that the 0 to 60 component in these EVs will continue to be a marketing tool for companies that want to impress the average public. And as Elon said many years ago, provide a smackdown to ICE vehicles. It's definitely doing that. I get a kick out of some of these guys that take a Tesla Model S 4-door grocery getter sedan to the drag strip and begin to embarrass guys that have spent tens of thousands of dollars on vehicles that are cammed, that have nitrous oxide, that have special tires, slicks, and they're just blowing them away. And then they get in their car and they drive home, whereas these other cars have to get trailered. All right, we have a question from Instagram. Eoin Caldwell. Question is, when is Gruber Motors going to create their own third-party battery pack, say supplied from CATL? We had begun to work on something with a company that was working on graphene battery packs and found that the costs and logistics at this point were just insurmountable to bring in a product that we could plug into a Tesla Model S and actually have an operational battery pack. I think what you're going to find is the companies that are going to bring in this type of technology and compete with the existing battery pack manufacturers are going to be companies that specialize, have very deep pockets, and have investors backing them. The upfront development cost for something like this puts you into red ink for a long time. And for companies like ours that grow on cash flow and that have to have black ink in order to survive, it's not going to be companies like us in the independent space that are going to make something like this happen. All right, let's talk for a moment about the latest Tesla downturn in stock prices. Tesla announced a record delivery of 343,000 cars during its third quarter. But despite delivering a record number of cars, they ended up with about a 20,000 vehicle undelivered deficit, which of course doesn't mean very much. It means these cars are sold. They just didn't want to go through the end of quarter push to get these cars delivered so that it makes the bottom line look a little bit better. And this is probably a healthier direction because if you think about it, trying to get cars into the hands of owners at the end of a quarter, typically for Tesla meant that they were pulling in staff from all different parts of the company. They were also paying premiums for transporters who were delivering these cars. And we're fully aware of this, by the way. Transportation costs for vehicles within the last year has increased almost exponentially. We used to be able to bring in a car from California for $300 to $400 one way. That's going to be $1,000 easily these days. And East Coast, usually $800 to $1,200. That's over $2,000, $2,500. I think we just brought in one for $2,800 because we were in a hurry. We had to get the car, the Roadster, here quickly because it was bricking, meaning the battery was going to die. So I think it makes more sense for Tesla to forget about year or quarter end pushes to get cars into the hands of owners to feed the bottom line, because that will take care of itself. Those 20,000 vehicles that didn't get delivered are going to get delivered in Q4, so it gets pushed forward into the next quarter. But despite that, Wall Street decided that Tesla stock was not a good play right now, and it dropped. I think it was $250 a share, almost from $300. Again, the market is skittish, and my advice to anyone is this is the time to buy. Smart money buys dips. When you see a stock that has enormous potential, that has a bit of bad news temporarily, and it nosedives, that's the time to get in because you're going to catch the bounce. Even if you're short term, you get in, you catch the bounce, and you get back out. So this is buying territory for Tesla at $250 a share. I think a lot of people will be regretting within the next 6 months to a year, if you're long, not getting into it. And by the way, we are not financial advisors. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, but I do invest, and that's at least my strategy that I'm willing to share with you. We have a question from TikTok. Chelios. Model 3 motors have a small canister or cartridge on the side case. Is that grease? You know, I don't know that. I didn't know they had a canister on the side. That'll be an interesting one for our readers to research and check into. All right, so let's see what else we have here. There is a graph that we can pop up, and it shows the Tesla quarterly production, staying with that topic of what happened in Q3 of 2022. And you can see that graph looks quite healthy. They again broke some records. But despite that, Wall Street decided, Tesla is not a good play right now. Guarantee that's going to be temporary. Is that image up for our viewers, guys? Okay, all right. We'll bring up that image here shortly then. All right, let's see if we have any questions here. Okay. It looks like on Facebook, we've got Jiminy Stack. He is an old EV enthusiast and expert. He is watching us on Facebook. Welcome, Jiminy. How you doing? So the Tesla Optimus robot prototype. It was not the only thing that Tesla shared last Friday, during its AI Day presentation. Autopilot director Ashok Eluswamy took the stage during Tesla's AI Day to talk about how the company's full self-driving software has improved. Now here's a statistic that blew me away. He said that there are now 160,000 customers running on the beta FSD software, compared to only 2,000 from this time last year. There have been 35 software releases to FSD, and Elon made another prediction that he's made before. He said that this FSD, full self-driving technology for vehicles, would be ready for worldwide rollout by the end of this year. But he did acknowledge that regulatory and testing hurdles remain before any of that happens. It's going to be pretty exciting to have vehicles on the road that are almost driverless. We have a question from Instagram, the Gray Raptor. From what you guys have seen from ISOD and S and X drive units, due to the coolant, where you guys have found the leak, or where have we found the leak coming from? There is a seal that does not seem to like full launches, and the pressure eventually compromises the seal, and you end up with coolant in either the three-phase induction motor or, worse yet, in the inverter. The fix for that is some remanufacturing of the motor, but of course for Tesla, it's redesigning, and they've been working on that, and we believe that they have solved that problem. We have a YouTube question from Ben Kenobi. Is the art behind you another one of your shots? Thank you for reminding me. Yes. The picture that you see, those of you that are seeing the picture instead of green screen, and unfortunately because of production issues, the rest of our viewers on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube Shorts do not see the image behind us. But the mainstream YouTube users do. This is a picture at a Scottsdale resort. And what I find interesting using Photoshop is that you can take an image, create a copy of that image, take all the saturation out of the second image, in other words, rendering it to black and white, and then by using your delete tool, you can delete certain portions of the black and white image, which then lets the original color bleed through. This is great for taking shots of a car, for example, where you really want the focus to be on the vehicle and the background to recede. So you take pictures of your car, and then you delete all of the portions within the car, exposing now the color content behind that image. So that's what this image is. And we'll be posting more of these interesting images. We were doing infrared images in one of the earlier podcasts, and we have a lot more to show you. We have an Instagram viewer saying, "Hi, Mr. Gruber, how are you?" Again, tell us your locations. People like to hear where you're coming in from. Have a question? TikTok, Arizona Riders or AZ Riders. Where are you guys located? We're in Phoenix, Arizona, up by Deer Valley Air Park, North Phoenix. And usually at what age, he asks, do we see Model S battery failures? The problems with the Model S batteries is not necessarily age-related yet. The reason we say that is the Tesla Roadster is now going on 14 years, and many people are still using their original cylindrical mass cell lithium-ion battery packs. The failures that we're seeing in Roadsters and in the Model S are typically aberrations. There's a marginalized cell that has gone resistive. There are breaches to the battery case itself. The seals are compromised. Water got in the battery pack. Sometimes it's a leak inside the battery pack, because remember, you have a closed loop cooling system where you have glycol running through the battery pack. You also have electronics in a battery pack, circuit boards, battery management boards. There are components, microchips, capacitors, resistors, chokes, little transformers. Those can go bad as well. So it's a combination of things that fail. But what we haven't seen yet with the Roadster and with the Model S is the mass cell failures, which will eventually happen due to aging in the battery packs. We have a TikTok question. With the average U.S. income being $63,241 in 2021, how can there be mass EV adoption? Well, remember that in the world of EVs, you have your luxury cars, the Tesla Plaid, for example, even the higher or the larger battery pack Teslas. Then at the same token, you have the smaller battery cars, and you have a number of other EV manufacturers that are making cost-effective EVs. GM is one of those in that list, Ford. So not every EV is going to be expensive. And then you have the Chinese companies, which really haven't penetrated the U.S. market as heavily as they could, but they have cars like Candy, stock symbol is KNDI, who has an $18,000 EV. I mean, that's getting down into the range of internal combustion engine vehicles. And by the time you throw the federal tax credits or the state tax credits on top of that price, a couple of years ago, year and a half or so, you had ended up with almost a $10,000 EV, brand new, full warranty from China. So it is affordable, but there's definitely something to be said for the first electric vehicle made by a mainstream U.S. manufacturer that is actually substantially less expensive than an internal combustion engine car. And that day is coming rapidly. On Instagram, Dan of 300. How much does it usually cost to replace a single battery cell since the whole battery has to be taken out of the car? Well, the question almost answers itself. To take a large 1,200-pound battery pack out of a Tesla Model S, for example, or a 1,000-pound battery pack out of a Roadster, takes a lot of labor. Then you have the issue of finding that one resistive cell that's inside that battery pack, or the engineers that have to come and fix the electronics if it's something related to the battery management boards in the packs. The costs do tend to begin to increase, so it's not just a simple method of changing one cell like you do in your flashlight. So question is from Matt Nichols, 3000. Can you put Tesla motors and batteries in my 1972 El Camino? Yes, anything can be done. The question is it cost effective? And that answer right now is a resounding no. Unless there's an emotional attachment to that 79 El Camino and you want to convert that to EV, it's a lot of fabrication, it can be done. What we're all waiting for is manufacturers that are going to make crate engines, basically, or crate drivetrains that are plug and play that you can put into vehicles, legacy vehicles like this. And that day is probably coming rapidly with mandates that by year 2035, you won't be able to buy an ICE vehicle in California anymore or manufacture one. We have a YouTube message from Ben Campbell. Good day, Pete, from Perth, West Australia. Welcome, Ben. So we were talking about full self-driving. Honestly, I can't wait. That's going to be an exciting time. We have a graph or a picture to show up of the 2,000 customers versus 160,000 that are now on full self-driving. The other significant thing about that is the other manufacturers, EV manufacturers, are basically going to be starting from square one. Tesla already has the hardware and the software available, and for them it will just simply be flipping a switch. So again, does Tesla have a huge lead in the EV market? A resounding yes. Jiminy Stack, here locally on Facebook, is coming in. He says, yes, I have a new 2022 Bolt EV. Very affordable. We need to move that up. There you go, thank you. It is rated at 260 miles on a charge. I get 300 miles on an 80% charge in mostly city driving. So that answers an earlier question, are EVs affordable? And so 2022 Bolt EV. I'll let you guys Google it and find out what the price of that is. I have a question from Instagram. Ian Caldwell, sorry about that. The question is, what's the highest mileage Roadster that has come through our shop? I would have to say that's probably Rolf's 2011 Roadster, and he's got that thing up to over 110,000 miles already. His battery is still original. It charges to around 100 miles, so it's not as healthy as some of the other batteries that we see. I believe there's one in Europe, in Germany, that broke all of the mileage records. And off the top of my head, I don't remember what that was, but it was in excess of 110,000 miles. We have a TikTok comment from AZ Riders. He says there's a new company in Phoenix that is producing kits to electrify gas trucks. Have we heard of it? I don't think so, unless the staff here has heard of it, but we'll definitely look into that. I'm just pleased as can be that the state of Arizona has been designated as an EV mecca, and that's good for the economy. It's also good for us, since that's our technology here in this state. All right. Have an interesting one here. Apparently, Elon's in a bit of hot water again. He posted something on Twitter, and he has a solution for the Ukrainian conflict. And it immediately drew a number of responses. Even the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, chimed in. And his poll was, do we like the Elon that is pro-Ukrainian or the Elon that is pro-Russian? And so far, that poll indicates that the pro-Ukrainian Elon is the one that most people want to see. Now, he does make some good points. You know, this war is just dragging on. And this referendum, the votes that were just recently cast, has been called a sham by most countries. And by the way, I'm not trying to politicize this show, but since it involves Elon, I don't mind talking about it just a bit here. By the way, those of you that want to see an interesting video on our YouTube channel, 4 or 5 months ago, I felt compelled to send a personal message to Putin, and I simply created a video that tried to encourage him to stop this type of war. And you may find it interesting for those of you that are on YouTube. But anyway, so Elon looks to be in hot water currently. The point that he made was, if there's going to be a vote, let's get an independent voting organization like the UN to conduct this vote. I mean, it does seem kind of biased that armed soldiers at times were showing up at homes asking for people to cast a vote. So anyway, enough of that. Looks like Elon is going to have to deal with some fallout from this. But his intentions were good. He's seeking peace for Ukraine. Here's another interesting one. Ambassador Andrei Melnik. Apparently, there is a, let's see if I get the rest of this. All right. Apparently, this Ukrainian ambassador to Germany was not happy with the fact that Chancellor Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, did not visit Ukraine at the time that they were expecting him. And so anyway, this Andre, who is a diplomat, the ambassador to Germany, reacted with a mocking statement saying that we've offended the liverwurst, referring to Chancellor Olaf Scholz. It seems to me that he is no longer now a diplomat for Germany, and with that kind of an attitude, it seems like he may be better off on the front lines leading a charge rather than working in the world of diplomacy. All right, enough political stuff, right? Are we done with that? We have a customer in Florida who sent us her Roadster. Came from a Tesla service center. It was bricked. And one of the things that we do, of course, is we revive dead Roadsters. We bring them back to life. She sent us an email the other day and said, "Thank you for the update. We were just hit by Hurricane Ian and saw so many Teslas floating around, along with other cars. It was unreal. My big relief was knowing that our baby was safe with you all." We have another Roadster from Florida as well, and one might say that we probably saved those Roadsters if they were in harm's way. We have a statement or a comment here from Instagram. First name is pronounced Owen. Okay, E-O-I-N Caldwell, Owen Caldwell. Thank you for that clarification. What do we think of the new Roadster? Any ideas of delivery date? Love the show. Keep up the great work. Last time I was in Arizona, I was in Goodyear. We have a lot of pilots coming to Goodyear at Luke Air Force Base. They train there because we have such great weather and they can actually fly year-round. So what do I think of the new Roadster? Well, I think it's a really cool car. I wish it was a two-door. It's a four-door. Most sports cars, in my opinion, should be two-door. But the performance on that car is nothing like we've seen. And at the time that it was released, looked to be the fastest production car ever made. Questions, we get hit with questions all the time. When will they come out with it? Are they really going to build it? The question is a resounding yes. The timetables at Tesla don't always match our expectations out here. Take the Cybertruck, for example. But the car is real. I know that there are people working on it. It will be released. The question is when. And it's interesting to see how many pre-orders they got for that car. We have a YouTube comment. Greetings from Montreal, Linus GR. We have a Facebook question from Chuck Gruber. Great name, by the way. Where can I buy a Gruber Motors hoodie? One of our managers here actually has a silk screening business on the side, and he's the one that's been keeping us in shirts and hoodies, and we will eventually put swag like this out on our website. We have so many other things that we're developing on there that just hasn't been a front burner priority, but eventually you'll be able to buy some of that type of stuff on our website. Do we have any final questions? Okay. Again, I would like to thank our platforms. We have 5 of them live this morning, from Instagram to Facebook to YouTube Shorts and TikTok, which has always been very supportive of what we're doing. And then YouTube, mainstream YouTube. Stay tuned for our videos. We should be releasing another Tesla Roadster gallery video within the next week. This is where we take one of the over-the-top Roadsters that have been to our shop, and we provide the backstory. You know, in the world of cars, very few cars have an interesting backstory, but with Tesla Roadsters, that isn't the case. The first ones were sold to a lot of celebrities, dignitaries, famous people, and then the early adopters oftentimes became famous in and of their own right. And so very few Roadsters don't have an interesting backstory. So anyway, that's what this Roadster Gallery series is about, where we feature one of the Roadsters. We also, if you're interested in the first generation Tesla Roadster, which is going collectible, we have a Roadster matchmaking site on our website, grubermotors.com. If you want to see the Roadsters that are available for sale, all over the world, by the way, and what prices they're asking, but better yet, what prices they sold for, down at the bottom of that site are all of the Roadsters that we've sold on our site. And you can begin to see the pricing increases as the years progress with the Tesla Roadster. We have a YouTube question from Alinas GR. Would it be a good idea to have alternators placed in the front axles to use the kinetic energy of the vehicle to recharge the batteries? We hear that question often, and we should probably do a video on that, but it gets back to the basic laws of physics. You can't create more than you have to start with. And even though you could put alternators onto axles and capture kinetic energy, the amount of energy it takes to create that is more than what it generates. I don't think that that will always be the case. Eventually, we're going to get to the point where we have perpetual motion machines plus, but we're just not quite there yet. It is a great question, though. So anyway, wrapping up this show, we're pleased that we have this many platforms online now. Again, if you have any questions, you can email those if you missed the show to ev@gruber.com, Gruber.com, and we will entertain those on the next show. So thank you for watching. We'll see you this Thursday at 8:30 for our next podcast. Thank you.